And we're going to be talking top QBs. I wanted to start off with you and kind of go around table again. What did you think about the top QBs? Do you feel, I think that most people know the best QB from each conference. Maybe some people out there not as big college football fans as we are, but I think the given is the top guy. Alan got on to me because it's like, well, the given's going to be, we all know the given number one quarterback for each conference. And as I went through, I agree. And I don't normally agree with Alan, but I did in this case. So what were your thoughts going into it? Don't give us any peek yet, but kind of what were your thoughts? Was there anything, did everything just kind of align exactly the way you thought, or did you find a quarterback that maybe, you'd be interested in us knowing about?
I think there are, it's a very top-heavy class this year. We know who the top guys are who are coming out this year. I think one thing that stood out to me is there isn't, at least yet, a proven quarterback that really jumps out from the SEC. When you're talking about two guys at Georgia that are going to be battling out between Jamie Newman and JT Daniels, one of those guys could be really good, may not. Kyle Trask, maybe. Mac Jones, maybe. Bo Nix, maybe, but they're all unproven right now. One of those guys could jump out and be elite, but right now there's not really any major proven quarterbacks. Now for the other conferences, I think there's one or two guys, maybe even three guys in each conference that could really, really have a breakout season this year.
Yeah, I think you're along the lines. It's interesting to see SEC. Sorry, Alan, what were you going to say?
No, you're good. No, I was just going to say I agree with them. I think it's kind of funny how everybody talks about, and they're usually right, let's be honest, that the SEC is usually overall one of the best conferences, if not the best conference, year in and year out. And this year it seems like they're the only one that doesn't have that stud quarterback that everybody knows is going to be a star.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I kind of felt the same way about the SEC. It's going to be interesting to see. Joe Burrow's gone, so who's going to take his place at the top? Jake Fromm, not there anymore either, not to say that he was going to do that anyways. Let's start it off with the ACC. I'll give you a big shocker here. Top quarterback in the ACC, Trevor Lawrence from Clemson Tigers. The Clemson Tigers. But two guys that probably not surprising to you. I'm interested to see if you guys think, and let us know in the comments on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook what you think as well. If we're maybe way off. I don't think we are, but Trevor Lawrence, number one. And then two that I think, you need to watch out for. Really, Sam Howell, how can you not put him down? But I am kind of nervous about him because it is a sophomore. Sophomore slump is there. It's real. It happens. And it has happened. And I believe it kind of happened a little bit to Trevor Lawrence. So Sam Howell, but he's still on my list. Man, he's got a bunch of wide receivers that are all, I think, like juniors and seniors. Daz Newsome and Bo Corrales. He's got those two guys back, and he really connected with them very early on in the season and continued throughout the season. So he's on my list. And then I've got De'Aaron King. I think you guys aren't probably surprised about that because I put him in my article on southlandclub.com that he was one of the top 5 quarterbacks that I'm looking forward to seeing. It's interesting to say because, a lot of those quarterbacks you probably want to watch this year come from the ACC.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Yeah, I actually had the same 1, 2, and 3. So it's not a whole lot that I can add to the conversation there because I think Trevor Lawrence is obviously the top guy. Howell had a great season, and De'Aaron King I think is a talent from Houston, and that's one of the reasons why I picked. I went out on that limb. I told you how crazy it was to pick Miami to win the Coastal because I think North Carolina is going to be something this year on offense, especially. But Miami has what I think is the third best quarterback in the league, who also can make plays with his feet. But I think their defense is going to take a major step forward. That defensive line should be one of the best, if not the best, in the ACC, and that's why I picked them overall to win the Coastal this year. When everybody laughed at me, of course, somebody's got to do it.
In on my end of this, I agree with the top 3. I think that Lawrence, Howell, and King are going to be your top 3, but I don't think there's a lot of people that are giving love to the quarterback in Blacksburg, Virginia, Hendon Hooker. Very talented. You got to realize they were a long field goal and a strip sack touchdown away from beating Virginia and playing Clemson in the ACC championship. He's a talented quarterback. I think he's very good. I think the ACC as a whole has a shockingly good amount of quarterbacks in the league. You look at the Coastal, you have Howell, you have Hendon Hooker, De'Aaron King. Potentially you could have Chase Bryce step up and be a potential threat in that division as well. We don't know. But brush your shoulders off, Clemson fans. And then you look at the other side of the conference, Trevor Lawrence, obviously, Malik Cunningham at Louisville, Devin Leary may take a step forward for NC State, Tommy DeVito, and also there's a transfer from Notre Dame that went to Boston College. I think his name is Phil Jurkovec. A lot of people said he's very talented as well. So it's a very quarterback-driven league this year. It's not just the top three, and I think there's a lot of talent at that position in the ACC.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited about the ACC, and I'm looking forward to this season, especially Packer and Durham, looking to see what they have to say because they do such a great job kind of covering the ACC. And I think when we get into the season, we're going to see some pretty elite quarterbacks develop out of that conference, the conference we love that we want to kind of, I want to see other teams do well and compete against the other conferences. I want them to get destroyed by Clemson, but I want them to do well against the nation as a whole, the college football climate. Now, let me get over to kind of go alphabetical here, guys. I'm going to go to the Big 12. All right, now the Big 12, you're probably thinking, well, where's the Oklahoma quarterback? Now, I'm going to go ahead and upset some of my Oklahoma fans out there. My brother-in-law, who's a big-time Oklahoma fan, he lived in Oklahoma for a while. I'm not with it. I'm not with Spencer Rattler yet. I think that in the sense that I can't pick somebody that hasn't played a snap. Now, I know he's got a lot of clout coming from him from high school. He's a 5-star recruit. But I've got to go Sam Ehlinger. Obviously, Texas guy, big time quarterback, probably one of the best quarterbacks in the nation as far as a dual threat type guy. You got to worry about him every single play. He's a playmaker like a Tim Tebow type. I mean, he just can do it all. And, he did push LSU pretty far in that first game of the season. Now, LSU obviously turned around and won the game, but they're going to be looking to come back. Houston talked about this last week. Texas is going to come in there, and they're not going to just roll over for LSU. It's going to be a fight down there in Louisiana. So I'm looking forward to it. I think Sam Ehlinger is good for sure for the whole season as long as he stays healthy. I'm excited to see what he can do. I think the next one, this is kind of an obvious one as well. Brock Purdy, Iowa State. He's just beat out so many different stats for the Big 12. For somebody who's not coached by Lincoln Riley, he's a pretty doggone good quarterback. So I'm going to put him on there. And then another guy, I was going to, like I said, I couldn't put Spencer Rattler because he hadn't played it down. I don't really like some of the other ones because they're sophomores. So I'm kind of biased against sophomores right now. So I'm going to go with Charlie Brewer from Baylor. I believe he's a junior, and, he's kind of been pretty good for that team. So that's my three.
Okay. All right. So I had the same first two. I actually debated between Ehlinger and Brock Purdy a good bit, but I gave the edge to Ehlinger like you did in that one. So I had the same first two. I actually went against you, okay, and went Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State for my third guy. I thought about putting Spencer Rattler in simply because Lincoln Riley is a genius with quarterbacks. So he always finds a way to make them, kind of go beyond what their abilities say they should be doing. He always gets some great stats. It's pretty good how he does that. But I went with Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State. I actually think Oklahoma State is going to have a pretty good season. I think his Spencer Sanders, at least his INT should go down a little bit. Maybe he had some freshman mistakes, his first year, but I think he'll have a better year and see what Oklahoma State can do.
I actually went Brock Purdy number one. There are some people that think that he could be the third or fourth best quarterback taken in the NFL draft next year. Not saying that I believe that, but I think from an athletic standpoint, I like his athletic ability a little bit better than Sam Ehlinger. I actually have Sam Ehlinger third. I have second Spencer Sanders, and I was honestly debating putting him number one. I think Oklahoma State with him, Tylan Wallace, and Chuba Hubbard, depending on if they squash the beef that came out today, they could be a dark horse to win the Big 12 this year. I think that could be honestly a chance to do that, and I think he's going to be one of the key elements to that. Some other quarterback, I'm saying I didn't want to put Spencer Rattler in there just because I haven't seen him. I think there's not a lot of people talking about the quarterback in Fort Worth, Max Duggan of TCU. Very talented quarterback, highly rated prospect. Played really well last year. I know TCU had a down year, but he had some really, really big plays. I think he's going to have a very talented year, but I think he just missed out on the top three by a little bit.
That's the big problem with those two guys you guys mentioned is really the interceptions. And like you said, like you both addressed them, if they can get those interceptions down, Spencer Sanders, 2,065 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And then your TCU guy, Max Duggan, 2,007 yards, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And I like your case for Brock Purdy, 3,982 yards total, 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's a pretty good doggone year there for sure. Now, I know people can say, well, the Big 12 doesn't play any defense, so it's easy to get 4,000 yards passing in the Big 12. But, you got to be a pretty good doggone good quarterback there. And I like your point, Al, about who's gonna be back with Oklahoma State. I'm looking at it. They really are only replacing like 3 guys on offense. And that's a big deal. And most of them, you got your offensive lineman, tight end, running back. You got 2 wide receivers coming back. I mean, that bodes pretty well for a guy, even though he's a sophomore. So maybe I'll give him some slack since he's a sophomore. Maybe I'll let him, I'll let him be on your list. I'll allow it this time through. Let us know what you think in the comments. We've done ACC. If you're just joining in, we've got Big 12, what we went through. Now we're going to go into the Big 10 top quarterback. So we're giving our best quarterback, the one we think is the star of the conference for the Power 5. And then we're giving 2 that we think you should watch out for. So for Big 10, go figure. Who do you think I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick Justin Fields from Ohio State. And then who else do you think I'm going to pick? Well, I talked about this last season. How can you go wrong when you're betting on Morgan? Bet on Morgan. 24/7, 365. Bet on guys named Morgan. Tanner Morgan, you are on my list, my man, from Minnesota. I think he's going to continue to do well. And then it was kind of really hard for me. This was really hard, a third quarterback to pick in the Big 10. There's just Shawn Clifford. I know you're going to tell me Shawn Clifford of Penn State. I know, Al, that's the guy you got. If it's not, then I'm going to be shocked because I know you're a Penn State homer this year. You're waiting for them to win it all. But I just can't get on Shawn Clifford right now. I just don't think – I think he's a really good, game manager type. I think he's a really good Alabama-type quarterback. Before they had Tua. I think he's a really good, NC State-type quarterback, just guy that's not going to maybe ruin the game, but definitely not going to win a game for you. And then he doesn't have KJ Hamler, so I got to knock that against him. I'm actually going to go with a guy. He's on not a very good team, but he's a very good quarterback, and that's Payton Ramsey. He's a graduate transfer from Indiana. He's at Northwestern now. He's a really good quarterback. Obviously, may not be able to put up all the numbers that we might want to see in our list of this top quarterbacks, but I'm going to put him on the list because he's definitely a good one.
Yeah, no, that's a good list. It's not bad. It's not quite as good as mine, obviously, but it's not bad. Justin Fields definitely number 1. I actually have Tanner Morgan number 2 as well. And I debated, but I did take Shawn Clifford at Penn State, and I don't necessarily. Yeah, I don't have a big knock against what you said, but hey, when we were talking about our top 4 teams to begin the season, I mentioned Penn State as kind of being that sleeper team. I actually put them at 4, that they could have a big season. You get past the first 2 or 3, and it's like, man, who else am I going to pick? Because all these guys, all these teams seem like they're the same team. But yeah, I went with Shawn Clifford. I think he's a tough quarterback, and I think he's a good game manager. But I would put him as more of a game manager type. But I like his toughness. I like his attitude. So he had 2,600 yards. He had 23 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's just under 60% completion, so he's going to need to bump that up a little bit. But I did pick him as my number 3.
So I would say for my top 2, it's the same, Fields and Morgan. But the one that I'm debating against was my last spot, and it's 2 names that have not been mentioned, 2 names that are off the beaten path, I guess you could say. But one that we've not mentioned is the upcoming starter for the Michigan Wolverines, Dylan McCaffrey. He's very good, highly rated, highly touted quarterback. I believe in the last name McCaffrey. I think he's going to be very good. I don't know if he's going to be amazing, but you're talking about a league that doesn't have a whole lot of quarterback talent in it this year. I think he's going to rise above and at least be the 3rd best. Here's a name that also isn't getting mentioned that I think will get mentioned by this year. The new starting quarterback, I think middle of the season right now is for the Maryland Terrapins, Talia Tagovailoa is going to compete and take the starting job for the Maryland Terrapins, and I think he's going to have at least a shot at being in that top 3 in the Big 10.
Whoa. Shocker there. So he comes in, he transfers. Now, is he going to be able to play immediately off of this transfer, from Alabama, right? He transferred from Alabama. And I don't know if he's going to is he been approved yet? I'm not really sure. I know Dylan McCaffrey you had up there from Michigan. Now, Houston, if you were there with me last season, I am the biggest Michigan hater there is when it comes to a Clemson fan. I don't think very many Clemson fans think about Michigan. I just don't like Jim Harbaugh at all. I just don't like it. I don't like Michigan. They have a big problem. They can't beat Ohio State, so that's one thing. But I just don't like it. But anyways, that I could go on and on. But I like that. I like that pick for sure. There's definitely some guys out there that I think people need to take a look at. And I really wasn't thinking about Maryland at all. By the way, Maryland, another interesting note. Maryland is going to have a senior middle linebacker. I believe maybe a graduate senior middle linebacker by the name of Shaq Smith. So I wish him well too.
Yeah, I'm still over here trying to figure out how the Big 12 came before the Big 10 in alphabetical order, but it is what it is.
Because numbers before letters. All right. Because I wrote out 1 and 2 out. I didn't write out TW. The rule
Ouch.
with writing. Anything over 5, you write it out as a number. Okay. If you guys didn't know this, anything over 5. If it was the Big 4, I would have put FOUR. I almost misspelled that. But
Big 10 would be 1-0, which would come before 1-2. So you'd be wrong there too.
Okay, but I did it by largest number.
Oh man.
Alan, why do you just hold these stuff till after the show?
Yeah. Sometimes you need some comedic relief.
I love it. Let's get over to the Pac-12, Alan. Let's ignore that, and I'm going to delete it. Pac-12. Now, which, by the way, that doesn't make any sense. How did I do that?
I don't know.
Maybe it's because the Big 12 is actually the Big 10, and I did it more Western Conference than the Eastern Conference. That's the way I did it. So they both have 10 teams. In order to be fair, I went with the westernmost conference. That's what I did. All right.
So that's more of a case for people out there to go read my How to Make College Football Better Again article number 2 on SouthlandClub.com, because we can avoid all these name issues.
I did like your conference realignment for sure, because I do think they need to adopt the soccer, I say soccer, but it's like Premier League style relegation, where say like a team like Memphis or a team like Cincinnati can move up to a conference where teams like, maybe Georgia Tech can get bumped down for a couple of years. Maybe not permanently, but for a couple of years, rotate out some of the teams that are just straight up garbage, and get some fresh teams in there, get them some more experience at the top level. Especially if you're going to keep the playoff system the way it is, it's kind of like you should at least have some sort of rotation. But I think it's inevitable they're going to do something with the playoff system. Even though I agree with almost everybody in the sense that you put 16, 17 million teams in there, what happens is, and just like in your simulation, Houston, those low seeds get blown out. And so then teams like Clemson end up having to play these games that they're just going to blow them out anyways. And there's no need for those games in some cases. So, but let's not get onto that. Let's continue our top QBs for the Power 5 conferences with the Pac-12. P comes before S, right, Al?
You are correct there. You got that one right on the money.
All right. So P comes before S. So I'm going to go Pac-12. I'm going to go Kendon Slovis. Now, USC guy didn't really beat out JT Daniels. JT Daniels got hurt, and so then he took over, and then he actually did really well. He actually had the most average yards per game, 291.8 yards per game. and 3,502 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. This guy was pretty good last year, and I expect him to continue to do well going into this next season. So I've got him as the best quarterback in the Pac-12, not an Oregon guy. I don't even have an Oregon guy on this list, by the way, which is kind of strange to say after so many years of good Oregon quarterbacks. My next one is a guy that I watched. Y'all, I watched this game, Chase Garbers from California. It was him versus Arizona State. It was a late night, like Pac-12 at night games. I love those Pac-12 at night games. It is like midnight, and you're watching some college football before work tomorrow, and I love that. I love that about them. It gives them a platform, even though it's really late. But California versus Arizona State, and Chase got hurt, and I'm like, man, I really wanted to see what this guy could do, because if they won that game, then their next game was against Oregon. It would have been probably 2 undefeated teams facing each other, and it didn't happen. And I think that Chase Garbers is back healthy. If he is back healthy and good to go, I think that he is set up to be another really good quarterback there. Pac-12's got some good ones. They have Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. I did not pick him. I actually went with DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He had 2,701 yards, not as many as Daniels, but he plays for Chip Kelly, and I believe he's a junior now, so he's going to have another year under his belt with Chip Kelly. If he's got 3 years with Chip Kelly, I think this is the time for him to shine. But he was second in, just barely above Daniels in average yards per game at 245.5 yards per game. So I'm going with him. Those are my 3. What you got?
Yeah, I think the top 2 in the league are Kedon Slovis and Jaden Daniels. Kedon Slovis is my number 1 from USC. Like you said, I mean, he had a great season, 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 72% completion percentage. Okay. USC's been talking about being back for quite some time, and they really haven't been back since, Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart. So they really need to do something, the quarterback, to kind of get them there. I think Slovis is a great example of what somebody that could do that. Jaden Daniels, same way at Arizona State, he had a heck of a season. I debated these two back and forth a good bit. I like Jaden Daniels' ability. I like his running ability as well. I think he can make some plays with his feet. So I think that's going to help them out a lot. And I was really impressed with what they did last year. My third, and maybe it was kind of a wild card, just a little shot in the dark, I went with David Mills from Stanford. And I think Stanford is going to, I really like Stanford. I like the coach, and I want them to do well. It's kind of, and they've always done well. In these past few years, they've seemed to kind of dropped off a little bit. We all know that, the recruiting issues they have trying to get into players to Stanford. But I'm kind of hoping for them. I'm kind of hoping David Mills really steps up to the plate and is that guy for him.
To me, I think the number 1 quarterback in the Pac-12 is Jaden Daniels. I watched this game against Oregon last year, and I couldn't help but think that there were some shades of Deshaun Watson in his game. He's very, very talented, and what he's doing for their program, I think, could elevate them in the future, especially with what Herm Edwards has been able to accomplish in the last couple of years. I thought he was going to be a terrible hire, and he's turned that program into something that's actually very respectable. I think Kedon Slovis is going to be your number 2. This is a critical year, so he has to be your number, at least in the top 2 for the Pac-12 as far as quarterbacks go. Otherwise, Clay Helton's not looking at another year to be able to build on this. My third is going to be also a shot in the dark. Someone that I thought about from the beginning is Grant Gunnels from Arizona. He was 101 completions out of 155 attempts last year, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception, and this was not as a full-time quarterback. He was backing up Khalil Tate. This is his first year to be able to take over the reins in the system. I think this plays to more of what the system of Kevin Sumlin, the strengths of his system is to have a very pass-heavy offense. I think this is going to be at least a 7-5, 8-4 type of year for Arizona this year, and he's going to be able to play into that. One name we will not mention on this list is the future starter of the Utah Utes, Jake Bentley.
I was about to ask you that. Like, why didn't we pick Jake Bentley? Actually, some have Utah as probably the worst, like one of the worst drop-offs from 2019 to 2020. They're on that list of one of the worst teams drop-off wise from this year to last year. Kind of tough to be in that tough spot to be in for Mr. Bentley there. But we wish him well, We wish him well. And Arizona, though, that's interesting you say that about Arizona. I mean, they were last in scoring. Well, no, not last in scoring offense. They were about 7th. So they were bottom of the pack there in scoring offense. And so was California. So these teams, these quarterbacks, they're good quarterbacks, but they got to figure out how to get it together to be able to put some points up on the scoreboard for sure. Because, there's got to be something there. The Pac-12's got to get a team in it to be able to compete. Otherwise, they're going to be left out again. I don't see like a big juggernaut that will be able to compete with the likes of Clemson, Alabama, Florida, Georgia in this list of Pac-12 teams or with this list of Pac-12 quarterbacks. It's kind of scary, kind of sad, because I do want to see a representation from the West Coast in the college football playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be this year for sure. Going on to our last conference, the SEC, the worst conference in college football, is the Southeastern Conference, and their best quarterback is going to be a quarterback from the ACC, Jamie Newman from UGA. I put him down as their best quarterback heading into the 2020 season. I was just kidding about being the worst conference. We all know that the SEC is very, very dominant, and they got a lot of really good teams. We talked about it last season. They got a ton of really good teams. It's going to be hard to be a good quarterback in this year's SEC because there's a lot of very difficult games early on in the season, as we talked about last show. If you haven't seen our last show, go on to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go check out one of our last episodes. We talk about all the teams in the SEC. Go check that out. But I got Jamie Newman from UGA, transfer from Wake Forest. A lot of people are saying, well, is he going to be able to beat JT Daniels? Well, JT Daniels still got to get a waiver. I haven't seen anywhere where he hasn't got a waiver yet, or he has got a waiver. So I'm still waiting to hear from that. They did apply for it. Now, at that point, it would be like Newman versus kind of a 5-star recruit at that point. And Daniels is good. So there's no given that Newman would even be the best quarterback in that situation. But considering he's already been on the team, Daniels transferred later on in the season, considering that Newman is a graduate transfer, and considering that Newman, I think had success already, proven success, I think he gives him the upper hand. So I'm going to say Newman wins the job and continues. Another guy I really love is the guy that replaced Felipe Hot Dog, and that was Kyle Trask. I really like Kyle Trask. He did really well. I think he held his own against LSU. Couldn't hold it for the entire game, but I like Kyle Trask. I'm big on Florida this year. Another guy that I'm really, really big on is a guy, Alan, you talked about his team. He's not on that team anymore. KJ Costello with Mike Leach in Mississippi State. I believe he's going to be the starter heading into the fall. He's a guy, I believe, is from a transfer from Stanford, right? So I think that he is going to be I think he's going to show up quick because I think Mike Leach can teach people things that they're not used to doing or that maybe that they haven't been comfortable with. I think he can teach things very quickly with regards to the passing game. So I believe that Mississippi State can do well. So those are my 3 quarterbacks: Newman, Trask, Costello.
Look, I got to tell you, I'm really impressed with your list, with the exception of the fact that you switched 1 and 2. You did a really good job with this list. I had to put Kyle Trask first. We talked about this last week a little bit. I'm taking a wait and see approach on Jamie Newman, whether he's going to get into the SEC and be able to do the same things that he did in the ACC. I think he's a very talented quarterback, and I think he's more than deserving of being on this list. But right now, I do have him number 2 behind Kyle Trask. As a matter of fact, you look at their stats, and Trask were actually a little bit better than his were last year anyway. So I think Trask is kind of the clear number 1. But hey, if you're going just by stats, you talked about KJ Costello. He's my 3rd guy as well. And I think one of the main reasons is the fact that Mike Leach is his coach. We all know what Mike Leach does on offense. He's a wizard back there, especially with quarterbacks. He's a lot like Lincoln Riley with the way they do things. So I think his interceptions need to come down. But he had an injury-plagued 2019 season. So I'm giving you 2018 stats. But if you take a look at those stats, he had 3,540 yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 65% completion percentage, which is better than both of the top 2 quarterbacks from the SEC that we've already listed. So I think he's a dark horse to be one of, if not the best quarterback in this conference.
I think I'm going to end up going off the rails completely to all of y'all. You're going to hate my list, whatever. I'm just going ahead and put it out there. I'm under the assumption that JT Daniels is going to get the waiver. I think he is going to be the best quarterback in the SEC. I think that, if he doesn't, I don't trust Jamie Newman to be the best quarterback in the league for some reason. My list goes JT Daniels. Second, I'm going Bo Nix from Auburn. He's threw for 2,500 yards last year. He's the second leading returning rusher on Auburn's offense. And he's got a year to be coached under Chad Morris. We saw what the evolution was for Taj Boyd once Chad Morris came to town. I expect no less this to happen again in Auburn with a very talented quarterback in Bo Nix. And my third name is a name that no one is talking about. It's flying under the radar. Mr. Joey Freshwater's quarterback, Lane Kiffin's quarterback this year, John Reese Plumlee. He was the second leading passer last year with almost 1,000 yards. He wasn't full-time because he was backing up Matt Corral at the beginning of the year, but now he's got a full season to do that. He was also the leading rusher on the team with 1,000 yards rushing. He blew up LSU's defense last year, had an amazing performance. I think he's going to shock some people, including Mr. KJ Costello himself in the Egg Bowl at the end of the year.
Oh man! See, this kind of stuff just makes me want to watch. Let's go stop and let's just stop and watch some college football right now because I'm excited for this, man. I mean, can college football just go ahead and get here? We need this so bad right now. But great list, guys. I mean, did we touch just about every quarterback in the SEC on that one?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to say we didn't say LSU, right? I mean, Miles Brennan.
I'm just not. I don't see it. You don't have Joe Brady, and I'm wait and see with Scott Linehan as your passing game coordinator. I'm not real big on Steve Ensminger. He wasn't the head of the operation. It was all Joe Brady. So maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it.
I tend to agree. I'm taking it's just like Newman. I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach with that one. But I mean, LSU is going to be loaded. They're going to be loaded with talent, but I still think there's going to be a drop off with all the coordinators, they lost and the fact that they lost so much on offense. It's just going to be interesting to see where they go. Cause a lot of people still think they're going to be right up there near the top, but I'm taking a little bit of that. And I'm thinking a 10-2, 9-3 type season for LSU.
I don't know, man. I mean, I hear what you're telling me. Don't bank on Newman here, but graduate transfer, already won 10 games with his previous team. I know it was Wake Forest. I know. But imagine him not winning the job. I mean, that would be a huge spit in the face of the entire ACC. That'd be a spit in the face of Jamie Newman, to be honest with you. I think he is good enough to win the job. And Daniels has more years left. This is it for Newman. This is it. It would be heartbreaking for me. Not really for me, but for him. Thanks for watching this video, and make sure to join our live show every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it.